The president is now in the fight with a private university in the United States because he wants control over what college and universities can teach. Mostly, he wants them to only be able to teach white supremacy. He wants full control over their departments that teach Middle East studies, African American studies, and ethnic studies in K-12 schools. He wants complete control over that because he wants to be able to have one point of view, the white male point of view. And I'm going to speak very briskly about these things because I'm sick of us pretending like we don't see what's going on. I'm sick of us having so-called friends and allies who understand that we're in the middle of a white supremacy takeover of everything. The man is like going after the African American Smithsonian to dismantle different exhibits in it that he doesn't like. He has made himself the chairman of the board of the Kennedy Center because there are plays that they show or productions that they show that he doesn't like. See, this is the behavior of a white supremacist king. And the people who are supporting it, going along with it, are complying in advance. In the future, we will have our recollection with them. Everybody right now realize that these things don't last forever. So all of you that are going weak in the knees right now, just realize that you're setting your future up to be judged. We will not have anything to do with you in the future. Thank you, as a matter of fact. I'd like to thank you in advance. Thank you for allowing us to see your true colors at this moment, because you've been talking about equity for years. You've been talking about allies and allyship and whatever. Some of us knew that many of you were phony already, and you've just proven it. Now you're out here saying glowing things about an administration so that you can curry favor. Time will come back to you. Time will come back to you.
It is Freedom Friday and you are still not free.
It is Freedom Friday and you're still not free, but hopefully you're freer after this hour with Ish and me. Today we're missing our brother Sharif El-Mekki, who's doing big things. He's doing a press conference this morning. So we're just going to roll on with the news because the news carries on. There's two things we should talk about today. One is the Trump administration's continuing attack on everything Black, for one, but also everything poor or everything left wing or everything that's not Trump and not MAGA. And we have a couple of examples of that. But before we do, we talk about education on Freedom Friday all the time, and this is becoming a running theme with me. Teachers who have the wrong attitude about our kids has been an ongoing conversation, but I'm starting to see it emerge on TikTok in a way that is scary because it's becoming a genre. It's becoming a line of thought in the algorithm of these young teachers who haven't been teaching very long, who go into classrooms and then get on TikTok at night and talk about our students in ways in which I think is completely unacceptable. So let's roll this clip. We'll take a look at this clip, and then Ish, let's come back on the other side. And again, you're an educator. I would love to know how you respond to this, because I know how I do.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm here for one reason only, and that's to say this. This generation of students, kids, whatever y'all want to call them, they're cooked. There's no hope. I done did all I can. I done tried my hardest. I'm a teacher. I done tried my hardest. I teach high school. And I have no hope. Like, I'm not even trying to, like, nothing about this is funny. I'm so serious, like, disrespectful, addicted to phones. No need to or want to follow directions. No respect for authority. Like, there's, like, all of this is out the window. Like, there's none of that. I genuinely question every day if I want to have kids of my own because of how cooked this generation is. I pray for y'all kids. My kids are going to be weird. They ain't going to have friends because they could never.
So I made a response to this particular video saying a few things. What I said right off the bat is, number one, you're not a teacher and you're not an educator. You're a little girl with a classroom that you don't deserve, and your license should be taken away from you. You should never fix your lips to come online and talk this way about the kids. You look very immature and you sound immature, and I am sick of this particular line of thinking being put onto a platform where millions of people get to hear it and see it and start carrying these same attitudes about an entire generation of kids. How are you going to open your mouth to say that an entire generation of kids are cooked and you have no hope, but you're still going to keep that job right now? Makes no sense to me. Ish, what's your response? What do you think?
I mean, it's trifling, man. That's the best word I can describe it. Like, even the pathology, like, around our kids, because you know what group of kids she's talking about. She ain't talking about white children, right? And the way that she even presents herself, like you said, it seems very sophomoric, very immature, but also at the same time, it's like, were you trying to be buddy-buddy with these kids? Like, what are your teacher practices? Who's your mentors, right? Who's putting you on game on how to teach? Because, as a person who has taught in some of the roughest areas in Philadelphia where people wouldn't even walk down the street where I worked, right? And then that's where the kids were from. I never experienced that. People are people, right? You have situations where, folks aren't fully developed and they children, but they have the potential still to be developed. And I think that rhetoric like that and talking about our children like that do a disservice to what the actual work needs to be. And that work is to actually engage these children, because they are children, into discussions about the world, about life, about who they think they are. And it's not a question of disrespect and respect. It's like you give what you receive, right? Education is a two-way street. And if you don't have that coming your way and them coming back, of course you're going to have a rough time and you ain't going to be reaching these kids.
I'm interested in whether or not this is an age thing. I know teachers have often been accused of having the wrong attitudes about our kids, but it does feel like there is this generation like her of teachers now who are coming in. I don't know how they got the job. I don't know what program they came through. How do you arrive at a classroom and be that crazy, like uninformed about like what you're about to face? How does she have a classroom ish? Like, it seems to me that before you get let loose, you had some experience or some, almost to her, it sounds like it's surprising that she doesn't, have the best experience with the kids. How does she get there?
Listen, I've met folks that are very problematic that should never be in front of students, right? And unfortunately, there are some folks that are still in front of students like that, right? And that's just like the full scope, the reality of what it is. Not everybody that becomes a teacher is a good person, or really has a vested interest in investing themselves into the student lives in which are in front of them and the communities they work in, right? But even deeper than that, I would say, what are you doing to correct this situation? What program did she go to that allowed her to come in and, like you said, teach? Like, where's her principal at? You know what I mean? Like, she put herself out on blast out on TikTok. If I was her administrator, I would be in her classroom every single day. Like, how are you talking to these students? How are you dealing with it? But the larger issue is those structures aren't in existence because people are too busy checking off that box that they need to do to comply with sometimes unnecessary demands that are just like box checking situations, nothing that really benefits the children overall. So for me, that's just like, it's trash. Like, I teach future teachers, right? And I can tell you right now, none of those students who I had my last class with last night think like that about the students they teach. You know what I mean? And we had conversations about this, about how you orient yourself. And really, it might be a failure of our society. It's a reflection of this like individualistic, like rugged type of like, I'm going to do it myself. I don't need nobody. And then we pump that to our children. Then we act like that ourselves. And then we're surprised when they don't mess with you because you're trash.
I mean, what you just said, though, is like with the students that you're teaching to be teachers, they're building a culture that would prevent them from having this type of behavior and attitude. So I wonder about what culture she's in. Would it, like, if I'm scrolling through and this is my coworker, for instance, this is the teacher 2 classes down from me, for instance, I wonder what I would think if I was just scrolling through on a weekend and I saw my homie online talking about kids in the way that she just did, saying that they're cooked and everything. It must be okay in the culture that she's in and in the building that she's in for her to feel that bold and whatnot. She must not have a clique of people like the ones you're teaching to become teachers. and she probably needs one. I wonder what we do with the fact that this might get worse, because I feel like we're gonna start having warm body syndrome. Like anybody that wants to teach, anybody who wants to get in there or whatnot, we're just gonna, need teachers so badly or whatever that we're gonna lower our standards, and we're gonna have little girls like this in classrooms with people's real ass children. We have little girls running classrooms with real children, oftentimes bougie girls who themselves probably got educated in the suburbs. There's a bit of an affect. I'm making a leap of logic here, but I'm sorry. I've noticed a little bit of a trend of where it sounds like some of these young people are coming from when they come to the classroom like this. I was a great student. I never had this in my school that I went to. I mean, I didn't go to a school that like I'm teaching in or anything, but so I wonder we're going to get a whole bunch more of this. I feel like.
I think you bring up a great point. And, this is something that, I've discussed with Sharif before, right? When we're rebuilding the Black teacher pipeline. It's like, just, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And there's a class element that folks don't even talk about, where it doesn't matter if you're a Black or brown educator, you already pathologized the children in front of you and have accepted a lot of the anti-Black indoctrination that this society freaking is in the air, right? And so we got to be very intentional when we're training our replacements, when we're talking about what it means to be an educator, right? What it means is like, this ain't a job simply, right? This is something much deeper. It's something spiritual about it. And if you ain't in it for that, then, goodbye. Like, I don't care if you can like drill students and do that, teach like the champion John where you're doing the hand signals and treating them like little peons and be like, well, they're under control and they're silent and they're in rows. That ain't education. That's indoctrination, man. And we need to be very intentional
that's
about that conversation.
Let me pull out my $60 words ish. That's neocolonizing. That's neocolonial teaching. That's banking behavior, right? Let me act like I know something here, right? But you had to be trained to do that. Yep. You had to be trained. It had to be okay for you to. I mean, how do you pass state teacher exams that allow you to get inducted or praxis or whatever you want to call it, and then do your student teaching, and then get to a classroom and not have had anybody in the chain of command as you were coming through it say, whoa, wait a second. I mean, you're exhibiting some of the wrong behaviors here, whatever. Anyways, well, listen, I'll let this one rest because I know we got another subject to get to. But what I'll say to most people is, and this is the reason why I love talking to educators. This is why my life has made me fortunate to have educators in my network, because I can speak with some degree of authority, not of my own, but of the authority of the educators that I know who will tell me I'm not crazy. When I was a parent and didn't have that, I felt crazy half the time of like, is it me or are they just really not really cut out for our kids? They should be teaching in some other schools. Now I know enough educators in my life and have come through enough people in schools, starting schools or whatever, to know that this is weird and it's not good. It's not good for our kids. So Ish, thank you very much for what you do for the kids, and keep it real with the ones that are being trained, and don't let any of this hot mess make it to the classrooms. Well, listen, you brought up another issue today, which is that the Trump administration is on a holy tear to reshape the culture of the United States by taking over educational institutions and refabricating them and controlling what they can and can't teach and do. One of them is Harvard. The president is now in the fight with a private university in the United States because he wants control over what college and universities can teach. Mostly, he wants them to only be able to teach white supremacy. He wants full control over their departments that teach Middle East studies, African American studies, and ethnic studies in K-12 schools. He wants complete control over that because he wants to be able to have one point of view, the white male point of view. And I'm going to speak very briskly about these things, because I'm sick of us pretending like we don't see what's going on. I'm sick of us having so-called friends and allies who understand that we're in the middle of a white supremacy takeover of everything. The man is like going after the African American Smithsonian to dismantle different exhibits in it that he doesn't like. He has made himself the chairman of the board of the Kennedy Center, right? Because there are plays that they show or productions that they show that he doesn't like. See, this is the behavior of a white supremacist king. And the people who are supporting it and not going along with it or complying in advance, in the future, we will have our recollection with them. Everybody right now realize that these things don't last forever. So all of you that are going weak in the knees right now, just realize that you're setting your future up to be judged. We will not have anything to do with you in the future. Thank you, as a matter of fact. I'd like to thank you in advance. Thank you for allowing us to see your true colors at this moment, because you've been talking about equity for years. You've been talking about allies and allyship and whatever. Now, some of us knew that many of you were phony already, and you've just proven it. Now you're out here saying glowing things about an administration so that you can curry favor. Time will come back to you. Time will come back to you. But here's one that gets to me the most. You mentioned this about PBS. He's going after PBS, wants to cut the funding for NPR and PBS. Sesame Street is one of the single most successful educational programs in the history of educational programs. What Sesame Street did on TV, I don't think people know. I don't think people understand that there's research. There's longitudinal research on what it did specifically for kids that were previously marginalized. Kids that never saw themselves on TV, for instance, all of a sudden saw themselves, and they were learning their shapes, their colors, their letters, and so on. And they were coming to school a lot more prepared because of a television show, right? Now, I'm looking at some stuff here. It did, research says it did great things for learning, early learning, school readiness, long-term educational outcomes, social and emotional development, diversity and inclusion orientation, the breaking down of stigmas and cultural relevance. It had an impact, and it was an educational program. People think that, this is a puppet program. That was a program with an actual pedagogy behind it, right? This is the type of thing that capitalism ruins. When you get in a guy in office who's never had a kid that ever had to rely on public schools, never had to rely upon teaching and learning in an environment where they weren't considered little princes and kings, then you have an out-of-touch leader who doesn't understand that just because it doesn't do anything for Barron Trump doesn't mean that it shouldn't do anything for anybody else. This is a dark hour that we're in right now, but Ish, what do you think?
Oh yeah. When I read that article, ironically, it was sent to me this morning for somebody who works for WHYY, which is the local PBS affiliate here in Philadelphia. And it's just like crazy week because there's so much work being done, and they're all intertwined. All the networks under PBS and NPR are intertwined throughout the country. And places like Philadelphia will be fine. Like our drone, I think only 10% of their funding comes from the federal government. But it's the rural communities, those flyover states, those red states, those Trump supporting states that will be going through the most, get the most effect, where almost their whole programming budget is based off of federal funding. So it's like eliminating news competition in those areas. So the only thing left is for-profit television, Fox News, Newsmax, you know what I mean? And so it's like literally getting rid of the other idea. And then when we even talk about the consolidation of media corporations for local television news, you have very few owners of a lot of channels across the country. So I think it's like a control of news. It's a control of information, how that flows. And it really is a detriment to the folks who voted for him more than the folks who didn't vote for him on the coast. And they're going to be losing out on the essential programming like Sesame Street, right? But they'll also lose out on other programming that is being created in other places that's shared with them. So their news station will probably totally close. So they won't have access to PBS NewsHour in their local television markets.
Well, we'll say this too. I mean, for the record, when I say capitalism ruins everything, Sesame Street was removed years ago and moved to HBO, which then ruined it. Right. Then you put it. This is the reason why we need public television and public entities, is because something that went on for decades that was helping kids got moved over to HBO and suddenly was behind a firewall and suddenly was, in infected with all of the capitalist behavior, whatnot, that killed it, eventually just ruined it, right? In my lifetime, it's the saddest thing to see that in my lifetime, my kids' lifetime, to see that decline in something that was so valuable, national treasure. Jim Henson happens to be a personal hero of mine, and I've read a lot about his life and how Sesame Street came down. And I've been fascinated with Mr. Rogers and Zoom and these other media entities that did a good job of doing mass teaching by tricking kids. Oh, this is entertaining, but you're going to learn while you're being entertained. So that's why I know so much and I feel so much about it. But in terms of red states being more hurt by this sort of thing, I don't know about that, because this is why. I think a lot of this is aimed at making sure that those people never encounter an idea that they don't want them to encounter. So if you can make red states even dumber than they actually are right now, and let's be for real. I just want to be for real with people. Stop mincing words. The red states of the United States, the conservative side of the aisle, is in a side of the aisle that hates education, information, and hates the idea that there would be cultured people in the world. They're anti-intellectual. That's why when you look at the worst states for education in the United States, they're all red, with the exception of one, New Mexico. Other than that, it's red states. Right. So they're getting what they're voting for because they have the most anti-intellectual Nepo baby king with small hands running the country and running the country on their behalf. Right. This Jabba the Hutt fool that they've got up there, they think is on their side. He's on the side of money, and he wants you to be as dumb as you actually are and as dumb as you have been. Now, you just said Philly's going to be okay, right? In a lot of ways. When it comes to some of this culture stuff, I think blue states are going to have to fight back and going to have to stand up right now. I just don't think that anybody is taking it. I don't know, Ish. In peace times, we talk a lot about how we're warriors. In wartime, quiet as a church mouse, right? Quiet as a church mouse right now. What do you think the organizations that you support and I support, what should we do to push them out more and get them to get out there and get out front?
I think it's encourage people to join organizations, to not just be behind on social media talking trash about these things and reposting articles they don't read simply because it falls in line. It's like, what organization are you part of? Like, what's the type of work that you're working towards? If they're not part of the organization, support, advance the idea of joining the organizations. Here's a menu of list of organizations of what they can do in this their focus area. And I think, I just finished earlier this year reading Derek Bell's book, Confronting Authority. And in the book, he talks about this idea that most people don't get riled up and invested unless their issue is getting attacked, unless their thing that's dear to them or their livelihood is being threatened. And I'm starting to see this. Like, I'm receiving calls or emails from folks and be like, well, they're doing this and this is why we need to get activated, and then like starting pages and like email groups and everything, like that's starting to bubble. And like that shows you like this is what's happening now. Like, this guy can't be going like all over the place attacking all these things and think that people are just going to be like, okay, I'm going to accept this. And then even in those places, right, in those red states, there are people that enjoyed NPR. It might be a small minority, but
true.
they enjoy it.
That's true.
You know what I mean? And that allows them to feel like, I'm actually getting news. I'm actually, in the world. And once that gets taken away, those people are going to start standing up. And really, unfortunately, in America, politics is, the most vocal sometimes, right, can really push the envelope. And I'm excited at the potentiality that is happening right now. Like even professors who never really waded into politics that I know are getting like up in arms about research grants getting cut, and they're organizing amongst each other. So like, this has already began, and you won't be able to put it back in the box. And like, I love how you framed it. Like, we peep game, like we writing down who is really about this life, because at the end of the day, this won't exist. And and I think it ties to the idea, that time within itself, we're making the future right now. We might not know what it looks like at this point, but what are you doing right now in order to make that future? And that's, I think, the challenge that we need to be doing to everybody, and asking them, what are you doing? Not just typing about it, but even though that's important, but what else are you doing within your local communities to make this change?
I like this question. What are you doing? And I think this is the question. If we wanted to have actionable steps, the easiest one right now, I think, is to send off something today. Write something today to all the organizations that you support, especially the ones you support with money. If you're on anybody's mailing list right now, and I know that I am sick of unsubscribing from things, but what you need to do is pepper them with some email, since they're sending you one all the time. And you need to pepper them with threats. You need to say to them very directly, I am taking names right now of any organization that I am participating in that is silent about the current assault on the American mind, an assault on my culture, my people, right now. So if you are not out front, if I come to your website and I see nothing about any of this, if you have not put out a joint statement, if you are not leading the charge, number one, give me my money back, and I thank you very much for unsubscribing me at this moment, and realize that in the future, when we come through this, and we will win. That's the way this has always worked, is you go backwards and then you go forward. I think some people forgot that. I think some people forgot that these times are normal. This is the way the world works. You shouldn't get too comfortable in between forward progress and white lash. You should expect it. It's like rain. It will come again. Just because it's sunny today doesn't mean that you're not going to have a hurricane in the future. So be prepared for it. Don't be surprised. So we're in the middle of a hurricane right now of stupidity, a hurricane of white supremacy at this moment. And let everybody know that you support in any particular way, that you will take their names. We will be taking your names for the future. There will be something to pay. Right now, it should be obvious to everybody that you're either for this or you're against it. Right? Because what's being done is not a secret, right? Why are you going after universities? Why are you trying to stop ethnic studies? Why are you trying to cleanse the record, ethnically cleanse the record of anything that is non-white? Why are you trying to deport people that are non-white? Why are you trying to go after any school's money if they teach things that are non-white? Why are you doing that unless it's exactly what we know what it is? Let's stop pretending like we don't know what this is, right? And let's stop pretending that we're powerless, because we're not. You are actively supporting things right now, quite possibly that contribute to the problem, that is contributing to your own demise. So let me name names. NAACP, Urban League, Jack and Jill, fraternities, all of the organizations that like to send us money for things like the ACLU and others. Let me just say this: out of everybody I just named, the ACLU is the only one that I feel like is actually out there, like really credibly trying to push back on this threat. You have other smaller free speech organizations and others who are taking this on. Harvard is standing up, right? After all these other universities just bowed to the knee, and kissed the plums. No, here comes Harvard. And Harvard's like, no, I'm not with that. I'm not, I'm an old institution. I got billions of dollars in my endowment. You can come for us, but we're smart people and we're going to work on this. Let's do this. Come get this work. If you don't have that attitude right now, give me my money back. If you don't have that attitude right now, unsubscribe me, right? And I hate to say it to my organizations, but Black people are in a unique situation right now. So if Black organizations are pulling well, maybe we shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that, or getting all, listen, if you talk like you've got ham in your mouth right now, what good are you? There is nothing that we have for you. So anyways, that's my rant for today. Goodbye. It's a breakup for any organization right now that is doing absolutely nothing to inoculate us against this wave of crazy white supremacy that is coming from the absolute top of the United States. That's my final word. Ish, what's your final word?
You just said it beautifully right there. Those organizations are created for the purpose for times like this. And if you ain't doing that work right now, if you ain't leveraging whatever institutional power you have accumulated all these years, then you a waste, man. You need to go to the ash bin of history, right? And then we need to uplift those other organizations. And if it doesn't exist, it needs to be created. And we're going to see all this happening. And I think you're right. That's a great call to action right now. You need to be hitting up if you're part of any of these organizations, right? That censors Black life and Black culture, and they ain't doing nothing or saying nothing or pushing back on nothing except in hushed corners or in closed meetings. That's a problem. There should be a public statement every day about all this nonsense that's going on and what folks are doing in order to push back, and not just showing up and dressing up at balls and eating fancy hors d'oeuvres and all that. Like, it's like a bubble world a lot of them folks exist in. And, that bubble needs to get burst. And then the question needs to be asked, are you really down for Black life? Are you really down for our children, our future? And if not, you're the enemy.
Damn, that's so dope. I think you just gave me another idea to put into the email to them. Cancel your galas and put that money into the defense right now of the people. Cancel your galas. Cancel the breakfasts and the suit parading of suits. Let's put that money into defense of our people, our children, our minds right now, because the gala, there's nothing to celebrate at this moment right now. We're in an anti-celebration type of mood right now. We didn't even talk about this, Ish. I mean, the last executive order about making it easier to punish kids in schools and getting rid of all the guidance that was aimed at stopping racial disparities in discipline in schools. You know what I mean?
it's controlling the information. It's like that information, don't worry. Oh, and then when you do that, what are you going to stand on? You can't even point to what it is. Mm-hmm. It's just anecdotal at that point, and they can just brush it off. But like, we also need to recognize the Supreme Court ruled decades ago that to prove racial discrimination, the person has to call you the N-word while they're like literally firing you in order to prove job discrimination.
Yeah.
You can't even use the data to prove racial discrimination in that level when it comes to jobs. So like, this is just a logical next step of like silencing and really erasing this idea that, racial issues, the original sin of this country continues to carry on. And then you'd be like, what's wrong with you? You're crazy. Something's wrong with you. And that's already in existence, right? But then you add on this certain other layer where it's like, even in schools, even in local communities, like you just won't even have access to information to show what's going on.
I'm going to say something that is different for me. And this is part of how I've evolved and my mind is going. And I can't believe this is about to come out of my mouth. But the original sin of the United States was not slavery and racism. Racism, as it became mechanized in the United States, was a function of capitalism, right? And I used to argue against that point. I used to argue against the point that I just made. But you're talking about a group of people who have been criminally insane when it comes to how can we structure systems to create money out of human beings. And slavery, the more I read about it, the less I think it was just, I hate Black people. The more I know that it was, if I can get 1,000 bodies to do this for 12 hours, it will produce X amount of cotton, which will produce X amount of money in my pocket, which I can compound and invest, which would make X amount of, see what I'm saying? It's just a chain of fools, right? So the bodies are kind of like collateral. They're kind of like, in war, what you call collateral damage. Yeah, they're humanity. Yeah, we don't care about them. We don't really love them, blah, blah, whatever. But at the end of the day, we're only doing this because there's value in them that we can extract, in the same way that we can extract it from their homelands and all that type of stuff. I still believe that race is the original sin. But I do think that there is something to be said about after you move on from that group of people, regardless of race, you move on to the other group of people. What we're learning right now is what I'm calling oftentimes white supremacy is I don't want to say ambivalent, but it is ambivalent about the welfare of its own people. You mentioned the rural communities, right? They're as throwaway as any of the rest of us, right?
And I think you're touching upon something real heavy right here, right? And this is what I used to how I used to teach my students about the original sin, right? It's racialized exploitation. So like that exploitation, white people with what the boys call the psychological wages of whiteness were willing to kind of sacrifice their well-being in order for them folks not to benefit. And that still exists, right? But then there is that exploitative part. And so if you're not talking about race and class and the intertwining of it, if you're just simply talking about race, they'll use class against you. If you're simply talking about class, they'll use race against you. You got to understand that they're intertwined and that we got to start thinking of different ways of thinking about that. Because it's true, like white supremacy doesn't capture the full gravity of what this is, right? But at the same time, we also need to be able to recognize that whiteness plays such a role in perpetuating and allowing it to exist because they are the majority in this country, right? And by 2050, they still be the majority of this country. And so we got to be very honest. So the way I used to teach it in class, I used to use the Audre Lorde quote, master's tools will never dismantle master's house. And I'm like, what's the first thing you need to do in order to build a house? What do you need to have? You need to have a foundation. So what is America's foundation built upon? What's this house built upon? And that's racialized exploitation. And then you add what tools then were used to build that house that's on that foundation. Psychological warfare, violence, disinformation. And it's like, then you start developing those tools and then you start recognizing patterns of how this society actually orients itself at the detriment really of the planet. You know what I mean? And then you start to really question, okay, so how do we attack this? Because you can't use those same tools to dismantle that house. Because even if you burn that house to the ground, that foundation is laid and it still remains. We got to really root out the foundation and maybe even think out building another house on a different foundation. And we're nowhere near that conversation.
Well, we better get near it quick. I mean, I love it. I love the way that you just put that. Everybody listening and watching, we need to remember all of these things at once. Number one, we need to remember that it matters who's teaching our kids. It matters what they're teaching. It matters what our institutions do when they're under attack by anti-intellectual forces. It matters what our culture is and what our culture will be. It matters what institutions we support with our money, our time, our effort, and our attention. And if they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing right now, I don't care how historic they are. I don't care about how much you love them or whatever. If they are not meeting the moment, and if you're not demanding for them to meet the moment, then that is our problem. Nothing else is our problem than that. And then ending up where we just ended, the ultimate goal is to build the world that we want to live in, where we can be free. And you can only do that if you tear down the foundation of your oppression. If you cannot tear down the foundation and the colonization of your mind. And here's something I'm going to write about this. I'm promising to you right now when I get off of here, I'm going to write about this today, is the tyranny of comfort, the violence of comfort, right? This is what we need to start calling out right now. It is the tyranny of comfort that is stopping people from doing the brave thing at this moment right now. Not because they're not brave, but because they are greedy for the comfort that they have, and they are so desperately afraid of losing it. They're desperately afraid of the little 5 cents that they might lose in their job, the meetings that they may not be invited to anymore, the circles that they won't be able to be in if they say the real thing right now. Dr. King told you all about this a long time ago about the silence of our friends. I have no friends that are silent. That's the update on his quote. I have no friends who are silent. I have enemies that are silent. That's today's word. Listen, this has been another episode of Freedom Friday, and you're still not free. I hope you figured that out in this discussion today. But hopefully you're freer than when we started this with Ish and me, and we will see you on the next episode.